has landed herself a new, very high-profile position, and I've been wondering when this was going to happen. I knew at some point, somewhere, with some miscellaneous media outlet, Caitlin Clark would get a gig, and now we know where that gig's going to be, when that gig's going to be, and who that gig's going to be for.
Caitlin Clark just landed a position that absolutely nobody saw coming. And here's the thing, this isn't just another endorsement deal or a casual media appearance. This is a full analyst role with NBC Sports on their brand new flagship basketball program, Basketball Night in America. We're talking about a WNBA player who's never done professional TV analysis before, sitting at a desk with actual Hall of Famers, analyzing NBA games on one of the biggest stages in sports broadcasting. And the timing? The timing tells you everything you need to know about where the real power sits in women's basketball right now.
Go over here. This is the official from NBC Sports, the press release. And it basically does say the same thing. However, Caitlin Clark is going to join the studio team of Maria Taylor. She also hosts Football Night in America with Chris Sims and Mike Florio, Rodney Harrison, Tony Dungy, and Jason Garrett. Carmelo Anthony, Vince Carter, and Tracy McGrady for pregame commentary.
If you're excited to see where this story goes, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe, because we're about to break down why this move is way bigger than it looks on the surface. February 1st, 2026. That's the date Caitlin Clark makes her debut as an NBC Sports analyst, right before the Los Angeles Lakers and New York Knicks tip-off at Madison Square Garden. Then she's back March 9th for Oklahoma City Thunder versus the Knicks, two of the highest-profile NBA matchups you can possibly get. And they're putting a WNBA player on the desk with Carmelo Anthony, Vince Carter, Tracy McGrady, and Reggie Miller. That's not a trial run, folks. That's not NBC dipping their toes in the water to see if this works. That's a statement about her drawing power, her credibility, and her ability to move the needle in ways that very few athletes in any sport can match. So let's talk about why NBC made this move. They just secured NBA broadcasting rights in a massive deal worth $27 billion over 11 years, starting with the 2025 to 26 season. That's $2.5 billion annually just for their package of games. And they're building their entire basketball programming infrastructure from scratch, because they've been out of the NBA game for years. They looked at their crown jewel, Sunday Night Football, and the pregame show that sets the table, Football Night in America. And they said, we're doing the exact same thing for basketball.
Despite his limited role, simply having Jordan as part of the coverage created buzz. NBC is surely hoping Caitlin Clark's involvement will do the same. Of course, Caitlin Clark is expected to offer unique insights in assuming the analyst role for the first time, and her basketball IQ cannot be questioned. So the transition will be a seamless one for the Indiana Fever's star point guard. NBC will also have WNBA coverage for the upcoming 2026 season, so Caitlin Clark will surely appear in more.
Basketball Night in America launches February 1st with Maria Taylor as the host. And joining her on the panel are four NBA legends and Caitlin Clark. NBC Sports executive producer Sam Flood didn't mince words. He called Clark one of the most captivating players and dynamic scorers in basketball, not women's basketball, basketball period. That phrasing matters because it signals exactly how NBC plans to position her. She's not being presented as a novelty or a diversity hire. She's being presented as someone who understands the game at the highest level and can communicate that understanding to viewers. But here's where it gets really interesting. NBC isn't just broadcasting NBA games. They also have WNBA broadcasting rights. So the one player who can bridge both audiences, who can bring casual fans into women's basketball and bring women's basketball fans into NBA coverage, just became their employee. This isn't about her basketball IQ, though that's obviously elite. This is about her ability to make people care. And NBC is betting big that her name recognition and fan loyalty translates across sports.
This is interesting. You notice ESPN did not jump in. I don't see anything from USA Network on here. I mean, pretty safe to say they wasn't going to put her on a panel with Elle Duncan, I wouldn't think. Who knows? I mean, you never know with media outlets. NBC.
Now, while NBC is rolling out the red carpet for Caitlin Clark, the WNBA is in the middle of a full-blown crisis. The collective bargaining agreement expired in October 2025, and right now, as we speak, there is no deal. The players' union and the league owners are at a complete impasse over revenue sharing, housing arrangements, and salaries. Players are threatening to sit out the entire 2026 season if they don't get their demands met. And here's the kicker. Without a CBA in place, the current salary cap is literally zero. That means no salary cap, no season.
You know, I don't know how much. There's no CBA right now. And this, of course, would run through, let's see, at least May, in theory. I don't know. We don't have any dates that stretch that far yet. I still think they're going to get the CBA done.
The WNBA released a schedule for the 2026 season that's supposed to start in May. But technically speaking, there is no confirmed 2026 season until they get this agreement done. Players want a salary cap of $10.5 million per team. The league is offering something closer to $5 million per team, with potential increases as revenue grows. That's not a small gap. That's a canyon, and both sides are dug in. So in the middle of all this chaos, in the middle of negotiations that could literally determine whether the 2026 WNBA season even happens, the league's biggest star just secured a deal that carries her income straight through May 2026, whether the WNBA season happens or not. She's got USA basketball commitments in March for World Cup qualifiers. She's got this NBC gig running through the spring, and she's building leverage that has absolutely nothing to do with what the players' union decides.
That's very interesting. By the way, you can watch these online at Peacock, on the Peacock app, which is NBC's official app out there, and I've got it because, well, there's some decent stuff on Peacock. There's movies, there's a couple of old series I watch on there, and WWE Saturday Night Main Event is on there.
Let's talk about Caitlin Clark's financial reality for a second, because it's important context for understanding why this NBC deal matters. In 2024, she signed an 8-year deal with Nike worth $28 million. That's the most lucrative endorsement contract in women's basketball history, and it includes her own signature shoe. She's also got deals with Gatorade, State Farm, Bose, Buick, Wilson, Topps, and others. In 2024 alone, she made $11 million from endorsements. Now compare that to her WNBA salary. Her rookie season in 2024, she made $76,000. For 2026, her WNBA salary is projected to be around $85,000. So her Nike deal alone pays her about $3.5 million per year, which is roughly 40 times what she makes from actually playing professional basketball in the WNBA. And now she's adding NBC income on top of that. She's already secured generational wealth through endorsements. She's already got mainstream visibility that transcends the WNBA. And now she's got a media career launching while she's still in her early 20s. Meanwhile, other WNBA players are watching their off-season income opportunities remain extremely limited, and they're watching the league's biggest star operate in a completely different economic reality than they're living in. The question that nobody wants to say out loud, but everyone's thinking: how hard is Caitlin Clark willing to fight for CBA improvements that benefit the middle and bottom of WNBA rosters when she's already set for life? That doesn't mean she's going to cross a picket line or undermine the union, but it does mean her incentives are fundamentally different than most players in the league. There's another layer to this story that's worth understanding. Caitlin Clark's 2025 season ended in September, but she hadn't played since July 15th. She suffered a right groin injury in the final moments of a win against the Connecticut Sun. That was actually her fourth separate muscle injury of the 2025 season. She'd already dealt with other muscle strains and issues that caused her to miss games earlier in the year. The groin injury was significant enough that she missed the WNBA All-Star Game and had to sit out the rest of the regular season plus the playoffs. In the 13 games she played during the 2025 season before getting hurt, she averaged 16.5 points and 8.8 assists. So there's a legitimate question about whether she's fully recovered and ready to handle the physical demands of a full WNBA season. That's a 10-month gap between when she last played in July 2025 and when the 2026 WNBA season is scheduled to start in May. And during that gap, she's staying visible, staying relevant, and staying paid through endorsements, USA Basketball, and now this NBC deal. From a brand management perspective, this is absolutely brilliant. She's not disappearing during a lengthy injury recovery. She's pivoting into media work that keeps her in front of audiences without putting physical stress on her body. Here's what makes the NBC choice really fascinating. ESPN didn't make this hire. ESPN is the primary broadcaster of WNBA games and has been for years. They've invested heavily in women's basketball coverage. They've got established analysts and commentators who cover the league. And yet when the opportunity came to bring Caitlin Clark into their basketball programming, either they didn't make a competitive offer or she chose NBC instead. And that tells you something about how she's thinking about her media career. ESPN is the establishment. They're where you go if you want to be taken seriously as a sports analyst. But NBC is the insurgent in basketball broadcasting. They just won NBA rights after being out of the game for years. They're building their basketball identity completely from scratch. And being part of that build, being there at the launch of Basketball Night in America, gives Caitlin Clark ownership over the brand in a way that joining an established ESPN program wouldn't. Plus, there's the Peacock factor. NBC's streaming platform is where they're putting a lot of their premium content, including exclusive games. If Basketball Night in America becomes a flagship property on Peacock, and Caitlin Clark is part of that from day one, she's positioning herself at the center of how younger audiences consume sports media. That's forward-thinking in a way that joining ESPN's traditional broadcast model just isn't. Her fever teammate Aaliyah Boston is already doing studio and game analysis for NBC's Big Ten women's basketball coverage during the WNBA offseason. So there's a template here. There's a path that shows WNBA players can do media work during the offseason and build their profiles beyond just playing. But let's talk about the pressure this puts on Caitlin Clark. She's never done professional TV analysis before, and her debut is Lakers versus Knicks at Madison Square Garden. LeBron James, Anthony Davis, potentially Jalen Brunson depending on health. The basketball world is going to be watching to see how she handles that spotlight. And if she delivers insights that make people think differently about what they're watching, this becomes a massive win for everyone involved. But if she's nervous or generic or clearly out of her depth sitting next to Carmelo Anthony and Vince Carter and Tracy McGrady, it's going to feed a narrative that she's not ready for this level of media exposure. And that narrative would be unfair, because nobody is truly ready for their first time on national television analyzing a sport they don't play professionally. But fair or not, that's the standard she's going to be held to. Every appearance is going to be scrutinized. Every word is going to be analyzed. If she says something insightful, it reinforces the idea that women's basketball players understand the game at an elite level. If she says something obvious or generic, it feeds into stereotypes about women's sports analysis. There's no neutral outcome here. The expectations are sky high, and the margin for error is razor thin. Here's the bigger picture that this NBC deal forces everyone to confront. The WNBA is in the middle of an identity crisis. Is it a niche product that serves a dedicated fan base and accepts limited mainstream appeal? Or is it a growth property that can compete for casual sports fans' attention alongside the NBA, NFL, and Major League Baseball? And the answer to that question determines everything about CBA negotiations, because it determines how much revenue owners can realistically expect to generate. Caitlin Clark's existence forces the growth narrative. Her rookie season in 2024 brought unprecedented attention to the WNBA. Attendance doubled in some markets. Television ratings hit records. Merchandise sales exploded. And now she's taking that star power and extending it into the offseason through media work. That's exactly what the league needs if it wants to be seen as a major sports property rather than a summer curiosity. But it also creates massive tension because that level of star power concentration makes other players feel undervalued. If Caitlin Clark is the reason NBC is investing in WNBA coverage, if she's the reason attendance is up and ratings are up, then shouldn't she be compensated differently than players who don't move those needles? And if you say yes to that question, you're undermining the collective bargaining structure that protects players who aren't superstars. The NBA dealt with this tension decades ago when Michael Jordan's earning potential vastly exceeded what the salary cap allowed. They created exceptions and loopholes and endorsement opportunities that let him get paid while maintaining the fiction of a level playing field. The WNBA is going to have to figure out its own version of that solution because Caitlin Clark's market value is already operating in a completely different universe than the league's pay structure can accommodate. So when you watch her debut on NBC on February 1st, you're not just watching a basketball player try her hand at analysis. You're watching the future of women's basketball economics play out in real time. You're watching a test case for whether WNBA stars can build mainstream media careers while still playing. And you're watching NBC make a bet that the Caitlin Clark phenomenon is sustainable, expandable, and valuable enough to build programming around. The question is whether she can deliver. Whether she can sit at that desk with NBA legends and provide insights that justify her presence. Whether she can handle the pressure of representing women's basketball every time she opens her mouth. Whether she can balance being an active WNBA player with being an NBA analyst without alienating fans of either league. My guess? She's going to be fine. She's handled pressure her entire life. She's been the story, the controversy, the focal point since college. She's dealt with defenders trying to hurt her, fans criticizing every decision, media scrutinizing every word. Sitting at a desk talking about basketball is easy compared to what she's already survived. And if NBC is smart, they'll let her be herself. Let her talk about the game the way she sees it. Let her bring the perspective of someone who's actually playing at an elite level right now. Don't try to make her sound like everyone else, because that's not what makes this hire potentially brilliant. Caitlin Clark doesn't think about basketball the way Carmelo Anthony thinks about basketball. She doesn't see the game the way Vince Carter sees it. She's got a different perspective shaped by playing in a different league with different rules and different expectations. And if NBC lets that perspective come through, if they let her challenge conventional wisdom and offer insights that only someone in her position could offer, this becomes must-watch television. But if they try to sand off the edges, if they make her play it safe and stick to obvious observations, then this becomes a waste of everyone's time. The value of having Caitlin Clark on your basketball show isn't that she can repeat what everyone else is saying. It's that she can say things nobody else can say because she's living a basketball experience that nobody else is living. She's a 23-year-old who's already the all-time leading scorer in NCAA history. She's a two-time WNBA All-Star who was Rookie of the Year. And she's doing this while carrying the weight of an entire league's mainstream visibility on her shoulders. So that's what we're watching for on February 1st. Not whether she's polished, not whether she sounds like a professional broadcaster, but whether she's willing to bring her authentic perspective to the conversation, even when that perspective challenges how people traditionally think about basketball. Because if she can do that, this NBC deal becomes the first chapter in a media career that could last decades. And if she can't, it becomes a cautionary tale about why active players should probably just focus on playing. Either way, it's going to be absolutely fascinating to watch. The biggest star in women's basketball analyzing men's basketball on a brand new platform during a CBA negotiation that could determine the future of her league. There's no script for this. Nobody's done it before at this level with these stakes. And that's exactly why it matters. So here's my final thought. NBC didn't just hire Caitlin Clark to fill a seat on their panel. They hired her because she moves needles. They hired her because she makes people care about basketball in ways that transcend gender or league or traditional broadcasting hierarchies. They hired her because in an era where attention is the most valuable currency in sports media, she's proven she can capture and hold that attention better than almost anyone. The question isn't whether she's qualified to analyze NBA games. The question is whether the basketball world is ready for what happens when someone with her perspective, her platform, and her fearlessness gets access to that level of mainstream visibility. Because if history is any guide, Caitlin Clark doesn't do anything halfway. She doesn't play it safe. And she doesn't back down from challenges just because people think she's not ready. February 1st, Lakers at Knicks, Madison Square Garden. Set your reminders, because we're all going to find out together whether this was genius or chaos. And honestly, knowing Caitlin Clark's career so far, it's probably going to be both. If you found this breakdown valuable and you want to stay updated on how this story develops, do me a favor, smash that like button, drop a comment with your prediction for how her debut is going to go, and subscribe so you don't miss any updates. Because trust me, this is just the beginning of a much bigger story about the future of women's basketball, media rights, and what happens when star power collides with tradition. Let's see how this plays out.